we're starting to get a lot more into the thick of Dexter Resurrections. We're 3 episodes in at this point, and what I want to talk about, and just because this is a little bit more of the glazing aspect of what I like about this show so far, and how I think it really does improve and fix things with New Blood. Now the thing is, I was always a fan of New Blood, and I really enjoyed it up until the end, because that really is where it gets lost in the weeds and just disappoints and lets everybody down. You really would think that after 10 years of reflecting on what went wrong with the end of the first run of the show, they bring things back and supposedly give it a proper ending, they somehow fuck it up all over again, even in some ways worse than it was the first time, because at the time it seemed like there was no chance of reconciling or fixing that. And what that came down to was setting up Batista coming back and finally having a confrontation with Dexter as the Bay Harbor Butcher, but also just the way that they killed him off was incredibly kind of half-baked and disappointing, almost went against what Harrison was doing. And the thing with Resurrections was that it gave Dexter the opportunity to have those things fixed. And that's definitely what they did, because I think that one of the best aspects of this is that we finally did get that Dexter and Batista reunion. We get to see the implications of Dexter faking his death for all these years, how that had an impact on Batista, how he's kind of treating him, and now that it's all but confirmed basically that Batista knows who Dexter really is, how he's going to react to that information. I kind of like that he's almost testing Dexter a little bit. He's obviously not being entirely real with him, and the amount that he knows, especially by the way that, he brings that information back to Miami Metro, it's seeming like Batista's going to hold his cards close to the chest until he really figures things out and can finally nail Dexter down for all of the deceit and the years of basically just being a wolf in sheep's clothing around everybody. He lost a lot of people that he cared about and loved because of Dexter and never knew it was actually him. And this resolution is probably a huge deal to him. That was definitely the biggest dangling plot thread from Dexter New Blood that was just the most agonizing, that they for some reason teased and didn't follow up, because that they fully made that show thinking that they were never going to answer these questions. So the thing about this is I don't even know why they teased the idea of Batista coming down to Iron Lake and showing up. He says, yeah, I'm on my way, and then they just never follow up on that. Until now, it seems like they listened to people, obviously because Dexter is just such a ratings gangbuster, they're going to bring him back, they're going to just proceed forward, but hopefully take a few lessons along the way, and this is definitely one that they took along the way, because it's looking like Batista's going to be kind of an important part of Dexter Resurrection. I wish that included the rest of Miami Metro. It seems like they're probably going to be relegated to maybe cameos here and there. I don't think they're going to be a big part of the show, but at least seeing an OG crew member finally hunting Dexter, because that's what the original show always felt like it was leading to. Seeing Miami Metro eventually turn on Dexter, having to deal with that and grapple with the idea that all of Dexter's lifelong friends are basically turning against him now and going after him. How's that going to have an impact on not only Dexter, but the rest of Miami Metro? And it's looking like we're finally going to get that question answered, and we're going to finally see that hunt. Even if it's just Batista versus Dexter, that's still a hell of a lot more satisfying than just years of Dexter's deceit and them never finding out, and then the unsatisfying endings of Lumberjack Dexter or Dexter getting shot. Now we're really getting into the meat of things, and this is definitely the ending that I think the fans really wanted, because it's only one that ends in tragedy, whether Dexter either kills Batista or gets Batista killed, or whether Batista takes in Dexter and Dexter finally gets the electric chair. But now next up, how I think that Dexter Resurrections fixes New Blood is that they make Harrison a hell of a lot more likable than he was in New Blood. I try to not be too hard on him, because I think that Harrison was pretty unlikable for I think understandable reasons, but the thing in New Blood is just hard to gravitate towards him when he's constantly just so antagonistic towards Dexter. He's just very whiny. He has a lot of I hate you dad moments, and it feels like every time Dexter's trying to start to break through to him, he just regresses a little bit, and it's just a bit frustrating to watch. And like I said, Dexter abandoned him his whole life. Goes with good reason that he wouldn't be too warm to Dexter, but Dexter is the character that we follow along and love, and it's frustrating to watch, even if you can kind of understand where he's coming from. But it's not endearing. I think in this one, they do damaged Harrison in a way that makes him a lot more endearing. You root for him more, especially with his turn to the dark side and his conflict with it, because it feels like they played it a bit more simplistically in New Blood, whereas in this, it seems like he has a lot more complicated feelings on his dark side, and that's definitely something that I hope they explore a good amount in this show, and I'm hoping that it's ultimately the thing that brings Dexter and Harrison back together, because I'm highly anticipating that reunion. I just hope that when that does happen, Harrison doesn't doesn't once again regress to the I hate you dad shit. I hope that they can kind of get past that and, you know, explore that complicated relationship while not leaning too heavily on the angst that they sort of do in New Blood. But so far, what they're doing with Harrison, I'm interested in his plot lines. I'm finding him a lot more likable, especially in the way of his relationship with the other worker and her son. That endears you to him a bit more, but also kind of the sense that he seems a bit more drawn to actually caring about justice a bit more than Dexter actually does. He has those dark, kind of violent, compulsive issues in the same way that Dexter does, but it seems like he actually does care. And it seems like he doesn't kill with no good reason. And that's something I do want to see them talk about and explore a bit more, but it's just cool to see. And then for the final point of what I think they have improved about Resurrections as a revival since New Blood is I think that now that we're back in New York, we're kind of getting that city feeling again. You're getting a bit more in the way of vibrant characters and actually a good amount of humor. I think it's going back to that original tone, and that's one of the things that I think people talked about and harped on a little bit with New Blood. I thought it was cool to see Dexter in that environment, that snowy environment. It's a bit sterile, it's quiet, so it makes it cool when Dexter kind of fucks up this little town, but actually also having Dexter back in a city, dealing with a bunch of kind of silly characters a little bit, city types and whatnot, and bringing back that sense of humor, that's something that I think Dexter was sorely missing in New Blood. And New Blood was going for something very different, so I kind of understand that in a way, but it is kind of cool to get back to that original feeling, because I think that is what it's trying to emulate, and I love to see it as a Dexter fan being brought back. One of the things I think was so intrinsic to that original show was its dark sense of humor. It had a nice sense of levity and balance to what can be a pretty dark show at times. So having that humor back, having it in full swing, and having a lot of great little moments that crack you up, especially with Dexter's disconnect with other people, which is always the best stuff. Putting Dexter in situations where he doesn't get social cues, that's always been the best humor of the show, and I think that with the city, it gives you so many opportunities to do that. But those are just my thoughts on what Dexter Resurrections improves about the original show. In the next video, I'm going to be getting into some of the things I think convolutes it about Dexter's previous history and Dexter New Blood, but we're going to get into that. Let me know what you guys think of Dexter Resurrections in the comments. Love to hear. I'm GM Light. Have a good one.